Today, we're talking about 7 deadly sins of real estate. And yes, I'm going to have to talk quickly because there's already 2 times I haven't gotten all the way through my slides because you know how I am. And I'm glad y'all love me anyway. And this is my favorite topic because there's something for everybody here, whether you've been in the business for just a couple of months and you're brand new to the game, or you've been in the business forever. We're very interesting as a profession because regardless of market conditions, we have great moments in our business and we have moments when the wheels have completely fallen off. And that's irregardless of how long you've been in the business, how many houses you sold. It's just who we are as humans. We go through dry seasons and we go through seasons of plenty. With that being said, when I fuss at y'all about the 7 deadly sins, you ought to know this is not Lee Brown from her pedestal looking down upon you peasants. This is Lee Brown fussing at herself because I screw up more than anybody else that I know, frankly. And it's probably because I get to see myself 24 hours a day and all the opportunities that I miss and all of the things that I could be doing better. And that's what we're talking about here today, is what makes us better. So let's dig right into the first of the sins that's killing us as a profession. And frankly, this is the sin that is causing the Department of Justice to look at real estate on the whole. For years, we have been advertising with our ego. You have been leading with your ego instead of the breadth and the depth and the amazingness that you bring to every consumer public person you're dealing with. We put this message forth in our business cards when it says you're a $1 million agent or a multi-million-dollar agent, and y'all are in the OC. That's like one house. I mean, it meant something back in the 70s when a house cost $12,000. We're not in that era right now. But when you lead with your production, the world does not know you're talking about purchase prices. The world thinks you're talking about all that cash money that's in your pocketbook and that you're rolling around in a bathtub like Scrooge McDuck and you think you're amazing. And we see this also in your personal marketing when you're doing Instagram posts and Facebook posts, and it's all about, I'm having my best year ever. I'm having my best month ever. I just had my 8th closing. I'm so humbled. You're not humble when you're saying out loud how great you are. Let's just reestablish what it means to have a little humility. Well, when you post about how much you're selling, call yourself a multi-million-dollar agent, you realize the public thinks that all you are is somebody who dresses up and drives around, acts like a used car salesman, makes people buy things, and gets paid a lot of money for not doing anything. As a profession, we need to be better at explaining the substance that realtors bring to every neighbor that we meet through real estate. And you know what that substance looks like. It looks like the care that you put into every deal, the questions that you answer. It looks like that list of professionals that you have. It looks like the moments when you work so hard for somebody and then tell them, I just don't think you should sell right now. I think you ought to hold tight. When you talk yourself out of business because it's the best thing for that neighbor, that is what substance looks like. And we also got to consider in this business, when we all do our ego promotions the very same way, that's why the government thinks we don't have any competition in the business, because they're not seeing the difference that each of you makes in your own different and unique way that you conduct business. If you've never read this book, you need to read this book. I don't care if you're not a reader. It's really important because until you understand why you've chosen the hardest profession on the planet, and yes, I think this is harder than almost anything because you have income uncertainty. You have a job that changes every day. You're carrying an enormous amount of stress. And frankly, you're not able to take a lot of personal time when the market is wildly out of whack, which it is right now. So why are you doing this? And this is the message that has never gotten to the public, y'all. We're easy at telling what we do. We say, what? I list your house. I belong to the Realtor Association. I belong to the MLS. I'll open doors. I'll negotiate, I'll do some photos. You start listing off all the what's when somebody wants to know what a realtor does. You're not telling them why you've chosen to be in this profession. And frankly, for most of you, I think it's because you're servant leaders. We really do lead with the best of ourselves on behalf of the public in real estate. And I believe that. I also think that each one of you serves in a different way. So if we're going to get this boiled down to a way where the Department of Justice would learn how to back off, which might be too late by now, but we're going to have to focus on it going forward anyway. If you know why you do real estate, it also answers why you're willing to work long hours. It answers why you're willing to work for free sometimes because it's the best thing for your neighbor. It explains why, as a realtor, you're willing to be at the forefront of the fight for fair housing because it's the right thing to do, even if you never get paid. And when money comes out of the conversation, everything else becomes really evident. So I'm going to challenge you on this to read this book. And for those of y'all that don't read, fine, go find the TED Talk. It's like 15 minutes. Invest 15 minutes in thinking about why you were uniquely created to serve your neighbors through real estate. There's something about you that the public loves and the rest of the public needs to understand. For some of you, your why, this whole thing that drives you, has moved because of COVID. I know that for me personally, a lot of things in my life have become very crystal clear during this era. And I'm not going to lie to you. I have trouble dealing with my anger right now at the way things are going in so many ways. Well, that's either going to make me stronger or it's going to distract me. I'm going to have to choose to let it make me stronger. And my clients love that fire. They love seeing that I care enough to get emotional. There's a lot to be said for you and your vulnerability and you paying attention to things like the DOJ and fair housing and the changes to California legislation like SB 9. If you're paying attention to those things and you have an opinion, start letting people know that you care about their real estate needs because you understand the impact of real estate. That's a huge why. And in fact, when you start putting those pieces together, right, and you start to say, I'm going to tell the public something different than what everybody else tells the public, then you can overcome the second of our deadly sins, which is all of us having this really ridiculous narrow focus on red herrings. And if you remember your business background or business school, if you ever took a marketing class, you learn about red herrings. They're not real. In fact, we talk about red herrings and like there's something that's real, like it's a problem, like it's something to overcome, but they don't even exist. They just live in the outskirts of our mind. So if I were to ask you what your biggest fear is in the realm of real estate, what would it be? Would it be that your consumers go to apps before they call you? And we won't name which apps because there's one you hate the most. And the one you hate the most is now a brokerage member. So you probably shouldn't even ever say their name out loud, kind of treat them like Voldemort, where you don't say Voldemort too many times, or Beetlejuice. You don't say Beetlejuice 3 times. Don't say that company you hate. You can call it a tree because that company does rhyme with another kind of tree. But you hate them. And it's not because they are bad. It's because they're interfering with the conversation that you have with your public. And the reason they interfere with the conversations you're having is that you're not addressing what the public wants. We have this really huge missed moment. And maybe your fears have nothing to do with apps and websites. Maybe your fears have to do with hedge funds and institutional buyers and what's going to happen with the future of real estate and housing stock on the whole. Well, you can worry about it or you can do something about it day by day. Are you the person who's doing the work of examining why these houses are getting purchased and what the trend lines look like so that you can be a second opinion to your neighbors? That's where you can provide this insane amount of value when you lead with what's best for that neighbor first. So if we're going to overcome things like hedge funds, institutional investors, websites, apps, any kind of outside money that wants to come into real estate, the first thing you have to do is define that why. That's your value proposition. So why you? I mean, y'all are in a big association. I am too. My association here in North Carolina has 20,000 members. We're the Charlotte, well, we were Charlotte Regional. Now we're Canopy, which is a whole different discussion why we change names all the time. But anyway, I'm not making fun of Okar being Ochre now because I love okra and your name actually makes more sense. But regardless, there's thousands and thousands of realtors where you are. Why you? Because your phone rang for a reason. Somebody called you, whether it was their neighbor that told them or another agent gave your name to them, or they rode by your sign, or they saw you at the ball field or at church. There's some reason somebody called you. So what do you do with that moment? That's what the value proposition is for. It's how do you accurately convey to that person that while there are thousands of realtors in the market and hundreds that are amazing, they called you. So what does that bring to them? The value proposition, by the way, is not about you. It's about what you bring to your neighbors. Realtors need to work on this. And I'm going to say this with a lot of love, because I love playing mama bear with realtors. If you think that you provide value by being an amazing marketer, what does that mean? Does that mean you're marketing to get more business for yourself? Or does that mean you're marketing their property accurately? And then what does that mean to buyers? It might not mean as much. And so I want you to really get focused on this, because for most of you, the value that you bring has nothing to do with those tasks and everything to do with your desire to lead through real estate in whatever way that is. Or my favorite phrase ever is to say that what a realtor does, a realtor is a professional problem solver, which means, yes, you should be paid for your work because you work your tails off and you exist to solve problems. And they might say, which problems? And you say, well, what day is it? And which house is it? And which client is involved? And which lender is involved? And which title company? And who's the other agent? And you start realizing that the problems you solve are on a blue million fronts. The public needs to understand that there's a reason that they lean on you so heavily during the process. And y'all know this because your texts blow up and you get like 47 texts today when you're under contract. What do we do next? What about utilities? What about this? What about this? What about this? And you're like, whoa, slow down for a second. I got you. But the sheer volume of what they ask you is a reflection of how much they rely on you. And that's where we should be cultivating differently. When you think about your buyers and sellers and what you're sending to them and what you're saying to them, look, a lot of it's crap. I'm just going to tell you bluntly, and there's no nicer way I can put it. You send out the most dreadful stuff ever. And by that, I mean, when I go to your website and submit an inquiry, some of y'all don't have autoresponders set up. Well, that's just stupid and lazy because it's available on almost every platform. It's already built in. You just have to cut it on. And the rest of you are lazy too because you never edited it. And so your autoresponder says things like, thank you for visiting my website. I'd love to set you up on a VIP home search. That's not cultivating. That is just a very blank, not real response. Kind of like when y'all submit a request to Apple for help. And you know you need help with your iPhone now because the 13's out, so all the old ones don't work right anymore. And I'm totally taking that personally that my 11 is now considered old. But anyway, if I submit for help, I don't get an answer. I get back a thank you for sending us your complaint, and we'll get back to you sometime in 24 to 48 or 4.5 weeks, hours. And how do you feel as a consumer, right? So think about that. When you feel really frustrated, okay, then why are we not answering that in our real estate lives to respond to the public in the way that responds to who we are as consumers now? Because we're consumers too. And consumer behavior has changed dramatically, not just in the past 10 years, but since the COVID era started. People have, frankly, I think the least amount of patience they've ever had. There's no grace left. And people just kind of live on the edge of annoyance all the time. How do you respond to that as a realtor? If you don't want people going to apps, then quit being a bot. That's your biggest answer right there. In fact, somebody should make a quote out of that. I should have said that out loud again so I remember. We're recording it. Cassie and Elsie, it's on you. If you want people to stop going to apps, stop sounding like a bot. And so if you are a servant leader through real estate who loves helping people figure out how to cross each hurdle one at a time, why doesn't your email say that when somebody comes to your website where it says, hey, I'm so glad you visited my website. You should know that one of my unique skills as a realtor is jumping hurdles, whether it's appraisal or survey or inspection. And wouldn't that be especially interesting if you were a runner in your life or maybe a track star at some point? You could then segue into saying, you know, I used to run track and now I'm middle-aged and I wish I could, so I jump hurdles in real estate. Think about it. There's so many ways you could build connection. If you connected to more neighbors, you wouldn't have to worry about any of these external forces because then they would crave the conversation with you instead of dreading it, which most of them dread it. So that's also what helps us solve the third of our sins. And the longer you've been in real estate, the guiltier you are of this, and you know it. Okay, just going to leave that out there for you. You have abandoned people after the closing occurs, and it's not intentional. And it's not mean or ugly or, you know, that you're hateful. It's that you're totally overwhelmed and distracted and have ADD. It's also that as realtors, you know that you've gotten paid on client X And until you get client Y going, you got nothing else coming in. You are effectively unemployed. We're unemployed every day in this business. Unfortunately, we're leaving behind the people that really got connected to us. Real estate's weird, right? You deal with somebody's money, and I mean, the biggest thing they'll ever own, and you're in the middle of it, like they're calling you and telling you all their personal stuff, and you're like, please stop, just don't need to know, I don't need to know this much, but they're telling you everything because you're in the middle of it, because it's a lot of money, but it's very emotional money, right? The babies are going to go to bed there at night. Is my mama going to be able to come in the front door because she's now on a walker? We're going to have to do some adjustments to the floor plan. Oh my gosh. And they're thinking about life in this large financial instrument. And you're in the center of that. And that's why they text you those 47 times a day. They're like, what do you think? What do we do? How do we get this? And you go ahead and answer. You're like, I got it. 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 I got you. Boom, boom, boom. You go to closing and you hug. You're like, I love you. No, I love you. And let's eat supper together and drink wine together. And we're best friends forever. And you're all about this love. And you give them a nice Cutco knife or a big old gift basket. And everybody's good friends. And then 3 days after closing, you've moved on. Whether you're on LinkedIn looking for people, or you are working with another buyer, or working with another seller, or sitting at the office thinking, is anybody ever going to call me? Because you're lazy, admit it, about doing your prospecting. And you didn't call that buyer. And then suddenly, because in realtor world, there is no good measure of time. And just give me a high five somewhere if you feel like 2020 just vanished from forever and you don't know what happened. Because in real estate, I get it. None of you have had a day off since last March. I know. Even though we were trying to fight for essential status and we had to wear masks and gloves and booties, still don't understand that one for the record. I'm not sure COVID ever transmitted off the bottom of a shoe, but we did what we had to do to keep moving. And because of the inventory struggles and because everybody wanted to get into real estate in some way, shape, or form, you haven't had a chance to breathe. I get it. Time flew away. Holy crap, y'all. It's November the 1st. I mean, can we just take a 2-second moment and say, holy smokes. Okay. And now that we've done that, you get this little postcard in the mail. It's my favorite postcard. It's from my home warranty provider. And it says, hey, congratulations. You've been in your house for a year. And I was like, oh, because my warranty company sends me a copy every time they send one to my buyers. And it says, in the year since you've lived at 123 Main, you've had $3,680 paid out in warranty claims. And I have to go, oh, I had no idea. They didn't call me. They didn't tell me. And oh my gosh, it means I haven't called them. Oh my gosh, it's been a year. Holy smokes, that closing, I thought it was yesterday. Oh my gosh, she probably had the baby. She had the baby and I didn't check in. I didn't send a baby gift. And oh my gosh, I can't call them now. It's been a year. They've had a baby. They've been in the house for a year. The home warranty company followed us. So I can't follow up now. Oh my gosh, I suck. That's why you abandon, because you get in the way of saying, because I didn't do what I should have done, I'm not going to do it now. And then 2 more years from now, you drive by and you see a sign in the yard that's somebody else and you get mad. Now you're like, people are not loyal anymore and people suck. And you get on internet and you're like, I don't believe this has happened to me. Some things though, before you hit post, you should just hit backspace a whole bunch of times. So how do we solve for this to where you're not losing the business 5 years from now and feeling guilty 12 months from now? Get thyself organized, a client relationship manager or customer relationship manager, whatever you think CRM stands for. It's kind of like CMA means something different to everybody, but whichever one you need, you need it. And it doesn't matter if it's an overpriced one like Top Producer, which I think is overpriced because they make you sign up for this big old contract. And then if you want to grow, they're going to charge you for seats and it's bloated with features you people will never use. And I know this. Maybe you're using something like Follow Up Boss, which I love, is pretty cost effective. Maybe Wise Agent, which is cheaper, or a Google Drive sheet that is free and you can share with somebody. It doesn't matter which one. Only thing that matters is, will you use it? And spoiler alert, this right here is not a CRM. When you go to your little contact manager, that's a collection of people. This is basically what is a Rolodex. It's a bunch of names and phone numbers, and it is not organized. It is not set up to remind you to do things. And that's why the phone is not a CRM. Now, your CRM can live on the phone. You might have an app, and I'm not saying that you should not do that, but don't confuse the two. If I save you in my phone today, there is like zero guarantee that I would remember your name this afternoon, much less in a month, because look, I'm medium aged. I don't know about y'all. I mean, if you're younger than I am, enjoy the memory while you have it. I had a really sharp, razor sharp bear trap memory until I had children and they took it away from me. And I know that y'all know what I'm talking about. So you've got to figure out how to put things in a place where you can find them. Okay. The one that's on your screen here is from Radius Agent. Radius Agent is actually included if you are a CRS designee. That's a certified residential specialist. It's the highest level of education, residential real estate. Or if you're a member of the Asian Realtor Association, Radius is available as well, or through Women's Council. Well, if you're already paying dues to one of those organizations, I mean, check it out, right? So I use Radius Agent to find other CRSs to place referrals. It's not my only CRM because, frankly, I haven't invested a lot of time in learning how to use it. I'm just going to be very honest with you. I use KV Core for my brokerage because I'm an independent brokerage. Before I did that, when I was still with one of the national brands, my team was on Chime, like, the sound a doorbell makes, back when we had real doorbells and not cameras. And then Contactually, I find to be amazing for solo agents. Regardless, set something up. And for those of y'all that don't have the time because you're busy or you don't have the technology expertise, and no judgment, there is somewhere in your life somebody that is between 16 and 25 years old that you could pay some cash to, and they will take all of that information that is currently sitting on your desk and move it into a program. I promise you that they will. And because young people don't want to have the strings of a real job, they love working for your side hustle for cash. And then they can put on LinkedIn that they were your assistant project manager or whatever. So you can totally elevate somebody else's resume. And then once you got all your people in a place, then you can worry about the follow-up tools. We all call those drip systems, like the river cut the Grand Canyon, but I tend to think of that more in the terms of 50s and 60s terminology. Y'all might remember they called somebody a drip when they were dull and dreadful and nobody wanted to hang out with them because they weren't fun and exciting. And that's what most of your follow-up is. If you guys would only just read what you're sending out, it's awful. In fact, there's a lender that I will not name out loud, but I'm on I think every loan officer in that joint has me on their mailing list. Because every 3 weeks when they drop an email, I get 4,000 of them and they all have the same subject line. And all I can think is, y'all are some lazy, lazy people. Can't even be bothered to mash the pencil and edit the subject line so that I will think you are different. Because as a consumer and realtors, you are consumers of what mortgage lenders have, just like they're consumers of what you have. At least act like you want my business by sending me something that feels personal. If what you're sending out doesn't even make the effort to feel personal, that's why nobody's responding to it. This is not rocket science, okay? And some of y'all don't even have any follow-up tools, which means you should go get something and then edit. Editing will take you, 10 minutes per article? Change out the subject line, edit some of the paragraphs, add in a little flair. Maybe you're the person who's like, Lee Brown, you talked about track people. I was a track people. Okay, great. Put that in your follow-up tools. Say, man, real estate to me is like a track meet, because it is, right? You remember going to track meets, anybody? It starts with the field events. And I know because I threw shot and discus. And you start with the field events and you make your way all the way to the 800, which was the last event, which was also my event. But all the way throughout the day, there was something different every day. And some things went quickly and some things went slowly. And you spent time with this group of people and that group of people, but you were all there for the same purpose of getting the team to the win. Oh, see how easy it is to take your past life or maybe your hobby and convey it into real estate? Look, some of y'all have the talent. You aren't seeing all of your awesomeness. And I really wish that you would, because that's going to bring the public to you. And once you start seeing that awesomeness, whoever out there is thinking about this whole track thing as a marketing campaign, you better get after it, because I'm sitting here realizing I'm hatching out my 2022 plan. The next thing you have to do is get your camera. And y'all know this is my camera, my iPhone, because I'm just too cheap to buy anything else. And I did buy something else, but I don't use it because it's never charged and it's never with me. So this is my camera of default. And so what you're going to do is take this and make a little video of whatever you've put into those follow-up tools. What is the message that you sent out? Is it to say, it is gratitude month here in November, and I'm just so grateful that I got to know you when we conducted your real estate. I hope everything's good. That video will take you approximately 8 seconds to make. If you sent that to everybody in your past client list, they're going to feel special. Or as the young people do, make a little heart and be like, oh, I love her. I miss you. They're going to respond to you. But you're not making those outreaches. Video is one of the tools that you guys have to suck it up and start using, because they already know your voice and your eyes and your energy, and they love hearing from you. By the way, I can make that message and put no name in it and send it to my whole list. And they don't know it wasn't custom cut for them because it sounds like it was. So just think carefully about your word selection and how you can be in a very personal space, but also being efficient. That's what tools like BombBomb and QuickPage are for. I don't use BombBomb anymore because frankly, they wouldn't give me a good coupon for my students in my classes. And if I wasn't getting it free and they wouldn't give a coupon, I said, well, I'll find somebody else. And that's how I found QuickPage. And I don't get QuickPage for free, but they gave me a coupon, so you can have that at the end. And I was just going to point out to you briefly, I mentioned that from a referral standpoint, I lean on my CRS fellows in every marketplace. They're also known as a residential real estate council, which monitors the designation. If I'm giving out an agent referral, I'm only going to give that to a person who's got their CRS designation, because it tells me they've invested in their professionalism and their profitability, and they've also closed enough houses to earn it. I'm also going to pull the trigger for the filter that says they are a major investor with the RAF if you're in California, or RPAC elsewhere, because that tells me they understand the depth of important issues that happen within property rights. Why would I give my referrals to anybody else? I mean, I don't give a rip if you're popular and somebody types in on Facebook, I'm looking for a realtor over here, and all your friends say this one, this one, this one. If I look you up and you are not a CRS or a major investor, you're not there yet. So elevate your game, y'all, which would also help you to overcome this next problem we have, which you know this, we ignore the telephone. You want it to ring. Every day you're like, is it going to ring today? Is it going to ring? And then it rings. You have two options. You're like, oh, decline or accept. Oh, I don't know this number. Oh, it might be a scammer, which that cracks me up that any realtor uses that as an excuse. They don't answer the phone because it might be a scammer. Y'all know you can hang up, right? I'm really not sure that we understand how telephones work anymore. That if it's a scammer, you hit decline and then you block. But what if that phone number that you did not know is a person, who was told to call you by their best friend? When we don't answer, they call somebody else. In fact, here's your little startling stat. The average consumer calls 6 realtors before they get one on the phone. 6. And here's why. You're not answering, and they're not going to wait for you. They might leave a message for the first one because that was the first one they thought of. And maybe you're legit in an appointment, so you legit could not answer the phone. Then I will cut you some slack, okay? But if you were just at Starbucks and you didn't feel like it, you're like, I'll call them back in 15 minutes when I'm outside. It's just too loud in here. Are you for real? You have these little AirPods. They have noise cancellation and stuff on them, which I don't think is perfect, but you could say to that person, hey, give me 2 shakes. I'm inside the coffee shop. Let me call you right back when I can hear you. They'd wait for you, but you don't answer. And so they call and call and call and call. And then the one of you that does answer is number 7. You say, hey, this is Lee Brown with One Community. And they're like, well, you're the first one to answer the phone. And you're like, oh, well, hey, nice to meet you. I'm so glad the other realtors didn't answer so I could talk to you. But you're digging out of a hole that was created by your peers. Well, what are we doing? Like, our number one skill as realtors is the connect, the ability you have to connect with people and to build relationships. That's your top thing. And you're not answering the phone. Or you do my least favorite thing, you don't answer and you send a text. Well, wait, what? Why? Why are you doing that? Your voice is the second best thing to video because they can hear your energy. They can hear that you're paying attention. They can hear if you make a thoughtful pause. They can tell if you're writing notes. There's so much that can be conveyed by your voice that text can't do. Texts get misunderstood, y'all. Emails are generally very boring. Stop ignoring the phone. That's the reason you have one, is so that it will one day ring. So here's your solution to handling this loss of business. Answer it. Except here's my carve outs for when you should not answer the phone. Ladies, if you're in the stall, please don't answer the phone. I do not know why people answer the phone when they're in the stall. That's kind of gross and tacky. And gentlemen, I don't know what y'all do with the trough, but please don't answer the phone there either. I don't think you should answer the phone when you're with buyers. And in fact, if you've got a deal that's got a wildfire going on, then tell the buyer, there is only one phone call I would dare to take, and it's because life is about to end for my clients if I don't handle it. They will give you grace and allow you to answer it, but it had better be an actual real something that nobody could cover for you. That's another reason you should have a great relationship with your broker, so that if you have that moment, your broker could cover for you. Just saying. And the other things that I would never take a phone in is to a listing appointment. I leave my phone in the car. For those of you that say, yes, but I'm going to take pictures of the listing. Okay, so take them after. When you have this with you, friends, it's breaking your concentration. And if it rings and you decline and turn it over and then tell that person, oh, I declined them because I'm with you. Too late. You already told them that you were going to check first and see if it was somebody better. Stop. But you need to answer it whenever possible. And by the way, I'll answer it at really inconvenient times. And I don't know if y'all have heard this story. If you have, then you can just listen again, because I'm going to tell it anyway. But I love to cook, as y'all know. So I'm in the grocery store a lot, which is why I'm very allergic to inflation right now, because holy smokes. But anyway, I have been stockpiling. And if you didn't buy your Thanksgiving turkey yet, buy it now. If you've got a place to put it in your freezer, I might even go buy a second one, because I'm pretty sure I can double my money between now and the end of November. But anyway, I'm at the grocery store, and it was one of those days when I had both kids with me. They were 5 and 6 at the time, and now they are 15 and 16. Okay, so they were littles, but big enough to know how to behave. And it was the big grocery day, so my buggy was piled to the rafters. We're in the checkout line, and I am the second buggy away. I am almost at the cashier. And y'all know how this works, right? Your kids are fine until, right? The phone rings, and then suddenly they turn into wild heathens and can't stop themselves from fighting over a candy bar or the naked people on the Weekly World News here in the checkout. And my phone rang, and it was a lead off of one of my listings. And I know sign calls are the best calls we get, right? Because they're living in a sense of urgency. And I'm like, it's a sign call. The children are acting stupid, and I'm almost at the cash register. Almost any realtor would have said, you know what, send it to voicemail. And realtors, I love y'all, but would you quit saying, well, if it's important, they'll leave me a message. You're not that special, okay? I'm just going to tell you, you have to start somewhere, and they don't know you yet. This is that initial introduction, okay? So I answered the phone and said, this is Lee Brown with One Community. And they said, oh, hey, I'm in front of your listing on Wilshire. How much is it? And I was so irritated. I was like, you know how much it is. It's in your app. But I didn't, because, you know, I was being nice and stuff. And I said, listen, I'm at the grocery store. My children are acting like wild heathens, and I am one buggy away from the cashier. Can I call you right back in like 5 minutes? And the guy on the other end of the phone, you know what he did? He went, I mean, yeah, 10, 15 minutes is fine. I'm like, great, I'll call you right back. All right. So I told him what was happening. And I then hung the phone up and promptly forgot about him, because you know how realtors are. I go through the checkout, I get everything to the car, and I have the children put the groceries in the car, because people, let your children work at home at least for something, because they are spoiled right now. And so I had the children putting the groceries in the car, and while they were putting stuff in the car, I got in and locked the door, and I picked up the phone and I called him back, and I said, hey, this is Lee Brown, and I appreciate your patience. I am 100% yours. What questions may I answer? And you know what he said to me? He said, is it a good time for you? Now check that. That was a wild, earth-shattering moment. He had not called 10 other realtors. He was checking to make sure that it was okay for me to talk, because I had told him what was happening in my life. So I used the phone as a window for him to allow him to know that as a realtor, I'm accessible and I'm human, and I'll follow up. And that allowed us to build a really good working relationship. And for the record, after I locked my kids out of the car that one time, they did not cut up anymore when the phone rang. They're very good. And to this day, if my phone rings, they just they just clam it up. And it's just good parenting. So learn how to answer your phone. But then you're thinking, but Lee, how did you know that it was an incoming sign call? Because I use a Google Voice number. Now, this is no cost to you. I know that there's a price to it because we've given all our privacy to the Googles of the world, but you know that. So if you go to google.com/voice, you can get a phone number with your local area code on it. So I've got a number and it's free, and that's on my yard signs. Why is that on my yard signs? So that when somebody calls it, I can tell on my phone that it is coming from my Google Voice number. That's also for another giant, huge reason. Some of y'all are very busy. Maybe you have a life outside of real estate, craziness. And you have a partner, a teammate, or even just a colleague in another office that you love and respect who would cover for you for a couple of hours. In your Google Voice number, there's this little cog wheel where you have settings. You can set that phone to simultaneously ring 5 numbers. The first person who answers when their phone is ringing is talking to the caller. The other 4, it just goes away. So what that means is if you're having date night and you carved out 3 hours to go eat at your favorite restaurant and you had a reservation and you're going to have 2 glasses of wine, which I know some of y'all really convert really well with 2 glasses of wine, but let's just say you went for 3 and now have no business talking to anybody in the public. And your partner agent, if they're set in the settings and some rando's driving by your fancy listing over here and gets a call, that person can take it so that you can have a life. Isn't that amazing? And then also you'd know what it's okay to answer and not answer. Guys, there's so many tools available and we just aren't using them because we get too mired in our own habits and the way we've always done things. And I'm going to point one other thing out to you because most realtors don't answer the phone. And you know this, because I don't have my cell phone number on my signs. When I'm in a listing appointment, I can say to that seller, one of the reasons you hire me is because we answer the phones. And that's why I sell more houses than almost anybody else in my market. And they're like, what? I'm like, seriously, try to call my competitor, call their cell phone. And that person calls it. And what does it do? Goes to voicemail. I'm like, yes. And when you call Lee Brown over here, just call my sign. And I show them a picture of my yard sign. They call the Google Voice number and they get, well, good afternoon. This is Katie with Lee Brown. How may I help you? Like, oh, I get a human. Oh, Shazam. Yes. So did you ever realize that a free tool could help you win a listing? What? Crazy. But I want to give y'all a cautionary tale too, because I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. And this is one that I made pretty extensively. You may be familiar with the Slide Dial app. It's that app that lets you dial somebody's number and it dumps you into their voicemail so their phone doesn't ring. And it's a really passive aggressive way to make phone calls. You don't really want to have a conversation. And that's me because I'm an introvert by nature. I like one good conversation, not 1,000 different conversations. I need to make my dials. So I'm calling through Slide Dial, leave a message, and they call back. And I'm like, I don't even want to talk to them, but now I have to because I left a message before. Right? It was creating some really bad habits with me. And that's not good. And so if there's a tool that you're using that turns into bad habits where you're less likely to talk to somebody, you are less engaged, maybe ditch that tool. So if you're using Slide Dial, just be cautious that it doesn't take over the actual outbound calls that lead to connection that makes somebody else's life better and lets you be their realtor of choice. Now, my next of our 7 deadly sins, I'm seeing this happen literally every day right now, and that's realtors who cherry pick. Now, prior to 2007, remember those days when the market was really solid? And then in 2007, midway, some of the markets were showing warning signs, Phoenix, Miami, Orlando, Vegas, and the rest of the world was okay. And then in the middle of 07, it was like somebody cut the spigot off and the phone stopped ringing and banks started going under and all hell broke loose. Prior to that, there were a lot of agents that said, oh, I only work luxury. I only work golf course. I only work water, whatever their only was. They were cherry picking their clients based on price point, based on area, and pretty much refusing everybody else. Well, when the recession hit, pretty much you worked with anybody that could actually get a loan and would buy a house because buyers were so hesitant. You couldn't help every seller because they were underwater. And so you learned how to help people again. But the only realtors who were able to do that were the ones that were still in business. We lost a lot of realtors at that time to, Whole Foods and Home Depot because they had to get a check coming in from somewhere because they had burned their business by really restricting with whom they're working. You need to think about your business more as a people farm than a geographic farm. And my dad told me on day one, those of y'all that know me know I've been a realtor for 21 years. I joined my dad, who became a realtor in 1978. And on day one, he told me, if you take care of people first, the money will find you. That's one of Daryl's adages. And the other one was, they could have called anybody, and they called you. He wanted to remind me every day that even if somebody was selling a really inexpensive condo or another kind of condo, which I call aluminum condos, also known as mobile homes, if somebody called me about one of those kind of properties that didn't look like a lot of money, to understand that it was a lot of money to them and that I should take great care of them. Where I'm seeing it right now, and you're seeing this too, there are realtors right now that even in this low inventory environment have decided they're only going to work X piece of the market. The bigger problem I have, for example, one of my past clients, and I have helped these people for going on 20 years. We've been together a long time. And in fact, they have ties to the Clintons, and it's a story over cocktails. I could tell somebody in San Diego, if you remind me. They're fascinating people. Well, her mother needs to buy a house. All right. How many of y'all even want a buyer referral right now, right? This has been going on since the pandemic started. You're like, I can't help a buyer, Lee. There's nothing for them to buy. And they're going to be in multiple offers, and it's just hopeless. All right. So I'm trying to find an agent to help my client's mother, who has not conducted real estate herself since 1976. Would y'all agree she needs a great professional realtor? I've currently called 4 different agents. All 4 of them said, I just can't help a buyer right now. Do you know how angry that makes me? Like the blood gets really red in my eyes. How in the world can you be a professional realtor and say, I just can't help you right now because the market, what's wrong with you? When can the market change? Right now, tomorrow? Are you paying attention to the news? There are so many economic indicators that are wildly out of favor right now. Who knows? Things can stay great. Things can turn. As a realtor, you need to make sure that you are keeping a robust business of all neighbors so that you can be available to help no matter what the market condition is. And the way that you figure that out is with, you knew I was going to talk about it because it's been in every one of your 4 OC Realtor series, my intake sheets, right? Love these things. It also helps you get really focused on keeping that broad customer base, right? Treat everybody with consistency and with professionalism. This is where I'm thinking about that referral network. So whether it's great referral people out of state or a great referral partner in the market, I want to make sure I've got a robust group of people that I trust so that I can make sure everybody is handled professionally. And why am I frustrated over this one? I didn't have a great referral source in that market, and I still don't. So here's what this looks like when somebody calls you and says, hey, I'm in front of your listing. Your next thing out of your mouth is, may I ask you a few questions? Maybe it's a past client calling you saying, hey, I need to sell my house. And you're thinking, I don't really work that zip code anymore. Your answer is, may I ask you a few questions? Buyer or seller, in market, out of market, doesn't matter. The first thing out of my mouth when somebody says, hey, Lee Brown, can you help me buy? Can you help me sell? May I ask you a few questions? When they say yes, you can ask anything. Now, when you ask anything, that's when you might find out it's out of my service area. I don't have the bandwidth because I've got 4 A buyers right now and I really can't serve them well. That's different than just, I don't want to. When you start to find that you're not able to service at that moment, you then lean into that referral network and you say to that person on the phone, hey, I would love to help you, but I actually don't have the bandwidth to do a good job, but I know somebody, frankly, he's better at real estate than I am. May I have him call you? And the consumer will say, that's fine. And you call Richard and say, hey, Richard, I got a good one over here and I can't get to it. Would you like to have it for a referral fee? And Richard will say, yes. The end goal of everything should be what is going to take the best care of my neighbor who has called me. That's how we stop cherry picking. If we stop thinking about people as contacts and leads and prospects and think about them as neighbors, you fix a lot of stuff. So you need to use these intake sheets. My buyer ones are printed on blue paper so I can find them. And my seller ones are printed on yellow paper so I can find them. These are the two I have to follow up with today. They're right here on my home desk. See, there they are. And part of the reason I use these little clear plastic folders that I get from Staples is so I can see the intake sheet without having to open a manila folder. Plus, I don't like how manila feels. I got a texture thing there anyway. So I keep them colored so I can find them, because that's part of the mark of a professional realtor, right? Is some at least imaginary form of organization, because this is also how we become the real proponents for fair housing. Fair housing is not just about, is HUD going to yell at me, or what the protected classes are according to the law. Basically, it's being a decent human, right? And what you do for one, you do for all. And so if you would treat every incoming phone call in the exact same professional way when it gets started, asking the right questions so you can make sure they've got great service, you'd solve fair housing, right? We wouldn't need all this stupid legislation then if we just did a better job, which is why you want to make sure you're in that permission-based mode, right? Because this sin of not asking questions is eating us alive as a profession. We don't ask enough questions because we just jump to conclusions. And in fact, the pandemic era has made it worse, because somebody calls you and you're like, I'll take that buyer lead, Lee. And you're like, listen, buyer, it's multiple offers. You better have your cash ready. And don't you even think about 5% down FHA or VA. You better find 50% down, and you better have some stiff deposit money, and you better be prepared to go 50 above ask. And are you ready for this? And y'all know there are realtors in our market that's how they're starting the relationship. And then you wonder why the public goes to an app. I don't blame the public. I wouldn't want to deal with you either. Get back into the great habit of asking questions. If we would solve this sin, frankly, you'd solve for a lot of stuff. So the way that you get yourself reset, right? You do need to tell them there's multiple offers and explain to them down payments and deposits and how they're going to structure it to win. But you don't start there. You start in the relationship by shutting up. I mean, realtors love to talk. You know this. What's going to be important is that when you get on the phone with that person and say, may I ask you a few questions? And they say yes. You say, fantastic. Well, what caused you to call me today? And then sit quietly until they answer. And then you ask them who all's involved in this purchase, and sit quietly until they answer. Start getting yourself into a really methodical pattern, and you'll change your business forever. But if they don't know what to say, sit quietly and give them a minute. Some people don't talk as fast as you do, as fast as I do, and don't think as fast as we do. Because you know what? They may have talked to another realtor and that person didn't ask them any questions. So now they're having to regroup themselves. It should be a game changer for us. And I want you to think about this in terms of when you go to the doctor, right? You do not want them to just start throwing drugs at you. At least I don't. I don't trust big pharma anymore. Do I take what I have to? Yes. So I was in a hospital this weekend, right? Because I have some blood clots in my leg because of this stupid broken foot. If I had walked in and they gave me blood thinners immediately, I wouldn't have taken them, because I'd be like, you people don't know what you're doing. You suck. Instead, they asked a blue million questions, did an ultrasound to find the actual clot and verify it. Then they talked about the different kinds of medical options I had. All right, that gave me the confidence to trust their recommendation. As a realtor, most of you are highly educated and competent and very professional. If you want people to listen to you, then listen to them. It's one of those things that we know up here, we're just not doing it. So let's get better. Part of that process is what I was trained on very early in the business. If you remember Howard Brenton, one of the greatest trainers we ever had in real estate, he started the Star Power Network. Jana Cadell is trying to bring it back to life right now. Howard always said, go 3 deep with your questions. So when you ask somebody, why are you moving? Then they say, well, for work. Then ask another question. Oh, what kind of work do you do? Oh, I'm an engineer. Oh, so is HR involved? Do we have a relocation department I should be interfacing with? It's going to help you figure out exactly what you're dealing with, because wouldn't you rather know about a relocation department sooner rather than later? Yes, you would. Wouldn't you like to know that the brother-in-law has his license and fully expects a referral fee sooner rather than later? And it happens when you ask more questions. And sometimes you're just not great at asking questions. I'll give you another book recommendation, and I should probably add this to my slides, but hey, it's a book called A More Beautiful Question. Highly recommended as a read to help you retrain yourself into some great habits so that you can do great things for your neighbors. And as they answer these beautiful questions that you're going to ask, take notes. Now, one of the things I always do before I start writing things down, is it okay if I make notes? And they all say yes. They're not going to fuss at you and say, how dare you? You should remember everything. They don't. But I'm medium aged and I don't remember things, and ginseng is not helping. I'm just going to lay that out there. I don't trust that supplement. And so I want to ask a question. I want to write my notes down, and that's going to make them understand that I'm a professional who cares enough to want to remember what they said, so I can demonstrate that I'm listening by writing. Talk about how you differentiate in your marketplace. If you want to be seen as a different kind of realtor, then do things well. Don't just do things. And the last thing I'll tell you here is use your intake sheets, just gonna say, because if you don't know what to ask, those intake sheets have all your questions laid out, friends. And by the way, I wrote the things, well, I adapted them from the original ones that I got from David and Judy Crockett in Mentor, Ohio. That's where I started, and I've modified them over the years. I know that thing like the back of my hand. I could pretty much recreate it without even looking. But when I get on the phone with somebody, I'm like, hey, how are you? And suddenly I'm down the rabbit hole. The intake sheets will help you stay focused. I'm just saying, keep them everywhere. Now, some of you have major loss aversion, which is what's happening right now. You don't want to let go of any possible lead because the inventory is low and you don't know what's happening in the market. And you hate losing because you think, if I let go of this lead, somebody else is going to get it and they're going to turn it into something great. So damn it, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to keep these people in my corner. But you're sometimes keeping the wrong people. You have to learn how to cut some of these things out of your life. And that's, again, why you build the referral network, so that you can pass people off. But some of those people that you've been working with are poison to you. They want you to work at the wrong hours. Their expectations are incorrect. What they want, you don't have. They cuss at you. They yell at you. They're unrealistic. They follow you home. Legit, I had a seller who used to follow me home because it was in my neighborhood where I used to live. It's why I don't really ever want to take another listing near my house, because I would be driving back to my house and she would be watching out of her front door. As soon as I would pass the corner, she was in her little car following me down the street. And I'm like, lady, I've got groceries and toddlers. What are you doing? That was a poison client, because she couldn't allow me the space to serve her professionally because she wanted to be in my business. I should have never taken her as a client. And in retrospect, I should have fired her before it got that toxic, because the best 4-letter word in real estate is next. There is always somebody next. If you are prospecting every day and you are out there working and you are visible in your community and you are ethical and competent and taking classes and knowing what you're doing, there will be another client. So you let go of the people that are draining you. And if you want to know which ones are a drain, it's when your phone rings and you see their phone number and you go, if I answer, I have to talk to her. If I don't answer, I have to call her back. That's a poison client. So learn how to cut that out, y'all. Okay, this sin you already know. Realtors lie. And I wish we didn't. I wish that honesty were something built into the realtor life. It's not. We are known for fluffing and puffing, frankly. And I have the picture from HR Puffin stuff here because I just want to prove that we had terrible TV in the 70s, just like there's terrible TV now. And I still don't know how they got away with that show. But anyway, if you want to figure out how to stop realtor lying in the world, then tell the truth. I know that sounds wild and crazy, but if the house does not have a gourmet kitchen, then don't say it has a gourmet kitchen just because they put a microwave in. And if it's got a master bedroom that's normal size, don't call it a spacious master. We tell some real whoppers. In fact, I guarantee you there's a house near you that says right now, immaculate move-in condition, gourmet kitchen, spacious master, room for your personal touches. And look, as a realtor, you're like, personal touches. That thing must have some wallpaper and be kind of nasty, because we know what the phrases mean. The public knows it to an extent. And then how many times have you had a client with you and you walked into a house and they're like, this looked good in the pictures, but what a pigsty. And you have to say, they hire us to take good pictures. And you're like, We need to tell the truth. If a house sits on the side of a hill, tell somebody it's got great drainage and sits on the side of a hill. If it's a house that needs to be gutted, then you need to say, this is a great house and needs to be gutted. Why are we so allergic? Now, there's a way to say it that doesn't hurt the seller's feelings, because you do want to be cognizant of the fact that that's somebody's largest financial instrument. But one of the things I'll tell you is that in talking to your clients, you can say to them, do I have your permission to tell the truth about everything on this house? Good, bad, indifferent. I'll make it sound as good as I can, but I want educated buyers here. You'll find that people will say yes. And that's where you've got to get better when you're intaking the listing, to ask questions about that scale of their house being on a 1 to 10, where do they fall? And having a real conversation about a 1, how a 1 has pee in the carpet and busted out windows and is a hot mess, because you and I have seen it, but most of your neighbors have never seen a 1. They think it's a 1 if they didn't run the vacuum or if the teenagers left dishes in the sink. So they don't have a relationship to how bad a 1 is. They also think they're a 10. They're not. So when a 10 is defined, you want to make sure they know that a 10 is new construction with the latest in flooring and the latest in countertops, and it's been staged and it's got a sodded yard and it's perfect. Then they understand that if they're a 7, that's why they called you, because you're a professional problem solver who's a servant leader. You're going to help them get from 7 to 10. That's one of your gifts that you bring. And the last thing I'll mention, as you're figuring out how to get better and more crafted at speaking truth on real estate, talk to the public like we talk to each other. So if we're talking about a listing, you're going to be like, hey girl, listen, this master has the closet that is about as big as a shoebox, but I think you could frame one into the corner. As your agent, I'd be like, oh snap, did you have your contractor run a bid on that? I know 2 befores are high, but they've come down a little bit. And you're like, no, it's a great idea. The way that we help each other out, if the public knew that the master closet was the same size as the shoebox, but you got a quote on building one in, that might help them make good decisions. It might help your sellers get a better price, and might help the buyers get the house and visualize it. We can do a lot of good with the truth. And actually, since I'm almost out of time, let me scooch up here to a very important thing I got to talk to y'all very briefly about. We're running up on the end of the year here. A lot of y'all have made a lot of money this year. You probably don't have much for squat left. I met a realtor last week who told me that he's very panicked right now because he's had so many bills to pay that he hasn't been paying the IRS his estimated quarterly payments. And I said, you better go sell a house and shovel every penny over there, because the IRS is not going to play, and neither is the State Department of Revenue. And he said, but I can't because I got bills to pay. And I said, honey, you can pay now, or you're going to surely pay later. And later is going to be very expensive. Suck it up. As realtors, you have to learn how to have the hard conversation with yourself. You have hard conversations with sellers about condition, and hard conversations with buyers about the multiple offer current market that we're in. Have a tough conversation with yourself about savings and stockpiling and paying taxes and putting some limits on your business. The first thing I want you to do is learn how to segregate your money. So one of the things that I recommend to my agents is 4 different bank accounts that they have. In every commission check that comes in, 40% drops in for business. So websites, sponsorships, block boxes and signs. 30% is personal, mortgages, car payments, pocketbooks, fingernails, RPAC. 20% is taxes. 10% is tithing or charitable giving if you're not a believer. So you think about it, your money needs to be working at all times in different ways. Let part of it work outside of you and in the community. That will grow your business. And I promise you it works. If you get out of that attitude of scarcity and get towards abundance, you'd be amazed at what happens when 10% of your money is out there doing things. 20% should be enough to get you at least out of the crosshairs on taxes. I would rather owe the government a little bit than have the government owe me anything, because I don't trust those people. And then 30%, live within your means. You don't have to have a fancy car. I drive an Explorer and I have a lot of business in my life. You do not have to pay your money to get somebody else's approval. Hello. And then 40%, get your business expenses under control. When a check comes in, if you divvy it up right away where you don't even see it, you're less likely to overspend it. And then, by the way, Amazon Prime is eating you people alive. You don't even know what's in the box today because you just ordered and slid and moved on because you memorized that credit card number and the security code and the expiration date. Call Visa, MasterCard, American Express and say, hey, I lost my card at the grocery store. I dropped it in the produce section and it might have got the COVID on it, so I don't want it now. They will send you another card, and that card will have a new number on it. And then suddenly everywhere you like to spend will reject you because you don't know the new number. I pretty much change numbers every 6 months, and it does not hurt my credit score or my responsibility with that lender because it just changes the number. It will slow you down though. If you have to slow down to where your wallet's across the room, you'll stop frivolously spending. And guys, this market's going to change. It's changing right now. And I know that you're noticing the stabilization. I'm grateful. You're probably grateful. But when the market shifts further, are you going to have a cushion so that you can survive? And I say this because some realtors could go away, in my opinion. I'm fine if some of them will turn their license in. But a lot of y'all, I need you because you're ethical and you're competent and your clients are so well served by you. I need you to be financially able to stay in the game. That's what this is about. If you're not good at budgeting, this is an excellent website to check out if you trust putting your information in websites, or if you're not able to learn QuickBooks. And then you can always hire a bookkeeper. I mean, that's always a possibility. Just another reminder, you should be investing in our political advocacy efforts. And if you have questions about that, you can reach out and actually reach out to Dave. He can tell you who is running that for OCR right now, and they can explain to you what's happening with the RAF and how you can be involved in that. And the last thing I'll tell you, we're already over by 2 minutes, but I'm just going to beg another minute off of you because as we get into the season of gratefulness in Thanksgiving month of November, and we get into the season of hope and love around Christmas and Hanukkah that happens in December, we have to start thinking about our priorities as humans, not just as realtors. In real estate, we do have a lot of inverted priorities because we get so focused on the next deal, the next commission. I'm just going to show one more house. I'm just going to do one more appointment, that we wind up putting our business in front of everything. Even if your motto is God, family, business, you're lying because for most of you, it's business, family, and then you totally left God out because you got so busy. You got to stop. Anything that we've learned in the last year and a half should have reminded us that life is ephemeral and life is going to end. And I don't care how many vaccines there are or how many masks you wear and how much social distancing you do, life's going to end at some point. So when you go, what legacy are you leaving behind? It's got to be more than real estate. It's got to be more than commissions. You've got to say, I want to have somebody's heart think warmly of me when I'm gone. So how do we get there? First of all, put your phone in airplane mode once in a while. That's like my favorite thing on my phone. People ask me my favorite app. I'm like, settings, airplane mode, that's number one. Because if you would just breathe for a couple of hours here and there, it would make everything better. You could handle wild scenarios better if you were not so stressed out. If you would go on a vacation with your family, and maybe you don't even like your family, you legit could like them better if you maybe spent time with them that wasn't hampered by social media, politics, and devices. Maybe you just need to go sit down and play cards with them. Or our new favorite family game is this dominoes game called Spinners. It's like wild dominoes. It's so much fun. $20 and your family will love it. Just learn how to put the things that matter back in first place. Because here's the wild part, y'all. When you are a better human, man, people are drawn to you. Buyers and sellers will want to work with you because they're going to see you as a complete human and not just a realtor. Now, speaking of being not just a realtor, I've got to throw this in here. We're heading into the home stretch of our 20th year fundraising for the Realtors Relief Foundation. And our goal is $8,500,000. We are currently $350,000 away from goal. And I want to get there on members, not just on associations, although we do appreciate the gift that was made by Orange County. So each one of y'all, please take a screenshot of this and put this in your Instagram, in your Facebook, and send it to other realtors and say, hey, be a part of the Realtors Relief Foundation, which takes 100% of your donated dollars and puts them back into communities in need. California has had a ton of need due to the wildfires in the last couple of years, not to mention throughout the country, the volcanoes in Hawaii, the derecho that hit Iowa, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it. We've had something to deal with. And in our 20th year, I want every member to participate so that you can then tell your clients that what you're doing is something bigger than just a sign in the yard, that you can and will sell their house, but you want to do something big beyond that. Now, there's a regional challenge right now. I don't think we've been had this text code last time I was with y'all, but if you will go to your text, send the phrase region 13 to 71777. There's a leaderboard going on the Realtors Relief website so we can see how the regions are doing. And y'all got a lot of people in region 13. So frankly, more y'all need to step it up. My recommended gift for a realtor who is doing the best they can is $9.11 in memory of 9/11, which is why we started the foundation. For those of y'all that are smoking it, do $91.10 or $911. And think about how you can put your dollars in a place that, first of all, showcases who realtors are, that we create foundations that allow 100% of dollars to go to our neighbors in need. And also that we really are doing things behind the scenes that nobody even sees. And that's exactly who we are. So that being said, the intake sheets and all of the stuff that you guys always want, right there. So screenshot that corner, go to learnwithlee.com or text the word kicktail to my 877 number. If you got that in a previous session and didn't use it, now's another chance to use it. See, because you have lots of chances. It's all the same downloads you saw before, but I love y'all. So very few of you have bothered to go download anything. And I wish you would, because it's included. And of course, there's all my other stuff there. There's my social handles. If you need anything, let me know, but do tag me when you post that Realtor Relief so we can start driving some more people over here. A big, big thank you to all the staff at OCR. I appreciate you guys and I love you very much. Can't wait to see some of you in person in San Diego. Please come find me and hug my neck. And also remember that the work you're doing really matters. And there's not anything else I can tell you except to carry that Realtor R out into the public and make sure that your neighbors know that you are there as a professional problem solver to give them guidance so they can make better decisions. That being said, I didn't see any questions today. I just see that y'all had some links from Elsie and Cassie. I love you. I'll see you soon. If I can be of any help to you in North Carolina, let me know, and take care of yourselves.